Hi, this is Dr. Karen Becker, and I have a guest today that I'm very excited about. Dr. Melissa Shelton is here joining me because I have felt very strongly about essential oils in veterinary medicine, but the frustration is not all veterinarians view them as safe, as effective, or something that we should be really investigating. And so I have brought to this interview an expert in this field, and I'm so excited. Melissa, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited. So I know that you have a tremendous amount of experience with essential oils. Tell me, how did you become involved with essential oils for animals?
I initially got involved with essential oils, actually not even for animals, but for my own children. We had specialized needs that required them to not have traditional medications or additives, food dyes, things like that. And so I had just seen a community education class that said natural remedies for colds, coughs, all this kind of stuff. And I thought, okay, I'll bite. And I went there, and it was essential oils. And so that kind of got me interested. I smelled them, and I thought, wow, wouldn't that be just great to be able to use? I was already on the path of not using any type of chemical air freshener in our home or in our veterinary clinic, and we were seeing actual blood work abnormalities in animals that the owners used a lot of air fresheners and things, and when they would remove them, the blood work would go back to normal. So I was pretty excited to smell something that smelled very nice.
Sure, of course.
That could potentially be used in the clinic but wouldn't be harmful. And so I kind of started investigating a little bit along those routes of, could I use this in the vet clinic and be safe? And of course, then you get onto the whole road of controversy.
Of course. So back up and tell me, I know that you were using them for your family. Did you, how long ago was this? 10 years ago?
No. Yeah, the funny thing is really, about 10 years ago, I was actually exposed to them. We ended up getting rid of my husband's warts with them after we had tried everything under the sun to get rid of them and couldn't. And so we used clove oil, and it got rid of his warts.
Cool.
And and I did nothing with them at that point.
Okay, sure.
I literally still 10 years later had that same bottle of clove oil, and it sat on my shelf. And of course, children are a huge driver. So
sure.
As soon as I was a mama bear and had to protect them from things, that just spurred it on. So
well, it's interesting. You and I have a similar background when it comes to essential oils. I was a wildlife rehabilitator, and 20 years ago, the woman who I apprenticed under said, if you have really stressed wild animals coming in, just put a few drops of very pure pharmaceutical grade lavender oil on a cotton ball and tape it outside of their cage, and you will see an overall calming effect. So I had done this for years. I never gave it a second thought. It was tremendously effective. And then all of a sudden, I had people saying, oh my gosh, there's not a cat in the room when you're doing that, right? And I started thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to hurt, I don't want to harm anything. And so we have both kind of been under the influence of then most recently, I would say for me, the last 10 years of other veterinarians saying, oh my goodness, you've got to be incredibly cautious using essential oils around animals. Tell me, you probably have undergone those types of questions and concerns as well.
Definitely. And I'm contacted very regularly, with the how dare you even recommend that you could do this around cats. And so actually to answer the previous question, it's about 3 years now that I've actually used them, I would say, as a medical, entity in the practice. And so with my own cats, I had about 13 cats in my home, my own pets, and breeding as well at that time. And so I was really cautious to even run a diffuser.
Yep.
And I would, be watching my cats really carefully. And of course, as a vet, we have this, great ability that I can run blood work whenever I want.
Right.
And so I did tons of blood work. What I kept noticing is that my Munchkin cat would continually go to the diffuser.
Yep.
And she would lay next to it. She actually delivered kittens right next to it. And I thought, she's probably smarter than we are.
Sure.
And so, I just continued to check blood work and urine and really monitor it closely. And I could see that there was no abnormalities, happening. And I thought, okay, we get a little more relaxed and kept going. And then it just, you start to go, well, I think the cat probably wouldn't lay right next to it if she disliked it.
Right. Have you had people contact you just because, I guess I've even looked online, there's just a tremendous amount of misinformation that potentially is kind of stirring up hype and fear. I don't want to say needlessly, but what have you found since you've become really passionate and really I would consider an expert on essential oils and animals? What have you found with the amount of vast information out there that, would you say it's misinformation or just unnecessary fear mongering?
There's a little bit of both. So there have been some, instances. I actually really kind of like researching these, reports of toxicity because I'm very fascinated by them. I want to find out, why is there a subset of people who can do certain things with oils, and then there's another subset of people who absolutely, like they said, I hope you don't have a cat in the room,
right?
And I've really found it's come down to a quality issue. And I think that that's very similar with all of veterinary medicine. I mean, we would certainly agree that if an animal is on a really poor grade of food, that we instantly want to change it to a better grade. We don't outlaw all food.
Right.
We just pick a better food.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it became very obvious that it was just the same as, the variations between a brand. I have a lot of brand preferences as a holistic vet. I find, one product will be safer or more effective or work better for my patients, and that's what I'll recommend. And so in the essential oils, what I've been finding is that natural bandwagon was very powerful, and so everybody wanted to jump on board, but they don't have any essential oil knowledge. So, if somebody wanted to make an ear cleaner all of a sudden and put an oil in it, they had no idea how to evaluate the grade of the oil that was going within the product.
Yep.
And so, and I find that even with companies that are big warehouses for essential oils, I'll ask them some questions and I realize they don't even really realize what the testing is involved, or how to evaluate an oil at all. They're just a warehouse for it. And, so there's still so much in misinformation, and I truly have spoken firsthand with people who have had cats damaged by essential oils. So it does happen. It's not as common as what people would think, though. For what gets out there on the internet, it's certainly, I've met thousands and thousands of people using them successfully, and can really only find very few that have had major problems with essential oils. And it's generally a very huge misuse issue.
and that was my question. Would you say that those clients or people that have been referred to you that have had problems with essential oils, are you able to trace it back to a purity, potency, mishandling problem 100% of the time, most of the time, or what are you finding with animals that have had negative consequences from using essential oils?
Yeah, I would say it's 100% of the time. Of course, a lot of times people will contact me with a case and it was a friend of a friend. Or, so data is really poor out there, too, and they often go, well, I don't remember what kind of essential oil it was, but I got it at the drugstore, or, little things like that. So it's very hard to trace back the exact things, but usually if I know that they've bought it just at any basic drugstore, I'm already pretty keyed up to kind of what kind of quality it probably was.
Sure.
The $5 oils on the shelf are not going to be quite the same.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would say that the ones that I can actually get information on, 100% of the time I can trace it back to either synthetic oils, poor grade oils, a horrible misuse, like one case a bottle had spilled over and the cat was basically covered in the essential oil. Well, no matter what kind of product you're doing, that's not going to be good.
Sure, of course.
So, yeah.
When you look back on your kind of evolution with essential oils, does it feel to you like you're able to trace it back to one particular instance where you became kind of ignitedly passionate, or do you think that it's just been a slow evolution of you seeing the results and then feeling more confident in using them in your practice? What was it, a slow or fast evolution?
I would say it kind of got fast all at once. I was instantly very drawn to them. I loved them. I had thought before that I couldn't, be around them much. I had like the smell sensitivities and different things for myself. And so I actually thought I was allergic to essential oils before, so it's kind of a funny evolution anyways. But when I got around these very high quality ones, I was just almost like energized and passionate about them. I read books from like cover to cover instantly, and as in a human sense, I was just it was like, wow, this is my new modality. And then it really became, we know as veterinarians, we all get a case that comes into the animal hospital that you just are stumped. You have nothing more to give them.
Yep.
You don't know where else to go. And so I started to get some of those cases presented just all at that same time. And the owners were just, I am not giving up on this animal, so you better give me something else.
Figure something out.
So, yeah, you better come up with something. I said, well, honestly, there was a couple different situations, but the one that I love the most right now is Cowboy the cat, who we just saw yesterday, and he has upper motor neuron damage to his bladder, cannot urinate. I had been hospitalizing him over and over and over again, and she says, I'm not giving up. I mean, we consulted. She would have done anything. If there was a surgery to do, a university that could do anything to drain his bladder on a regular basis safely for him, she would have done it. And so I kept saying, I just think it might be time to euthanize him, and she's like, no. And so I said, well, if this was a human, I would try these essential oils. And we sure did. And he's the funnest case in the world because he showed me over and over again. I actually freaked out several times because she continued to do an essential oil remedy that I had expected to wean him off of daily for like a month. And I was certain when he came back for his recheck blood work that I was going to really, really dislike it. It was going to be horrible and all these, horrible things. So I had my own doubts, and his blood work was perfect, and I told her to reduce. I think this was this is my clear statement in my head of these things really work. I said, go to every other day instead of daily, and he relapsed.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so there was a clear connection with him. Okay, give him the essential oil. He's doing great. Take it away from him, and he has symptoms. And it was just really cause and effect. I love those cause and effect relationships.
You bet.
And we've been following his blood work. He's been on, now he is actually getting a twice-a-day essential oil topically, a big mixture of them actually, for over 2 years. And his blood work is just spectacular. He just came in yesterday to have it rechecked, and he's actually regaining some neurologic function. And so it's just an amazing, that's one of my all-time favorite cases.
So how soon into essential oil therapy did he begin urinating? Can he urinate on his own now completely?
Not completely. He still maintains a slightly larger bladder, but it releases easier. We'll actually see now that when he sleeps, it will actually release, which I love because then his, that neural tone is actually releasing somewhat.
Sure.
He can urinate actually a puddle instead of just dribbles now. And he's getting that little paniculus response, a little twitching of their hair and their skin down his back. So when we pet him, he actually has that, and he can twitch his tail just ever so slightly. And so what we saw with him is I was ending up having to hospitalize him almost monthly to, kind of relieve that blockage, and he would have a cantaloupe-sized bladder.
Oh.
And it was just horrible. And so the catheterization and the hospitalization and getting him feeling better, and then back home he'd go, and within a month he was back again. Oh. And so on the oils I didn't have to repeat that. He's maintained for over a year without a repeat hospitalization.
So the owner has to just be ecstatic, and something so inexpensive and so non-invasive has been able to dramatically improve his quality of life.
Right. She has spent a fraction of even one of the hospitalizations on what we're doing for him.
That's wonderful. Are you finding, was there a specific case like that previously that kind of helped you go against the grain of not traditional treatment, but did you find initially that you were using essential oils more for cases that you didn't know where else to turn, whereas now you're using them as a primary care choice?
Right, yeah, and actually my very first cat case that I used oils on, I would say Cowboy's like my most favorite, but my very first was my own cat, because I would never do anything for a patient that I wouldn't do for myself or my own. And so my own outdoor cat, we have kind of a kitty rescue and stuff, so we have some outdoor farm cats, and she came stumbling up the driveway, completely neurologic, and I had actually, I drew up the euthanasia solution, quite honestly. And my husband says, well, you've actually been wanting to try essential oils. Maybe you want to try these before you, put her to sleep. And I thought, well, yeah, I suppose, I
Sure.
could, the end result, in my mind as a, veterinarian going, okay, if everybody's right and I'm going to kill this cat, well,
Sure.
what's the difference in a
Yep.
way?
Yep.
And I could either inject her with a fatal injection or I could give her a chance with some essential oils. And I always only tried things that I knew other people had done in cats before with good
Sure.
results. So
Sure.
I wasn't like just trying to be experimental on her. But we did. We did what we call a kitty raindrop on her, and within 2 of those doses, she was 100% normal.
Oh, how exciting.
And it
How
was,
exciting.
yeah, for me, and I always go after that data of, did that truly do something for her, or was it just she would have gotten better on her own? you
Well,
know,
in those situations where if you were contemplating euthanasia and you had a kitty who regained enough
yeah.
quality that was out of the question, how fabulous that you turned to that. Are you finding that you have specific recommendations? I mean, a lot of times people get excited about essential oils, or they've used them, let's say, for cleaning in their home, or for something personally, and they're interested in using essential oils for their pets. What's your recommendation in terms of how to get started without, above all, do no harm?
Right. And I, people kind of get a little weird about this, but I do have a brand that I have become really comfortable with. And so to make sure that the essential oil quality is very good, I think that's my most important thing. And I have a lot of people that contact me, what about this brand? What about that brand? And I'll contact the companies. I've probably evaluated about 25 different companies now. And there are some good small companies out there that provide, what I kind of term as medical grade oils because I use them medically. But I find it's not always a really consistent thing across the board of, every single one of their oils they carry is in that manner. And so I often tell people, I said, what's in your cleaning products is toilet bowl grade
Right,
essential oils.
right,
They're not going to pay a lot of money for a medical grade
right.
essential oil to put in your toilet bowl cleaner.
Yep.
And so we have to be really cautious with which ones we're getting. And so I do. I don't know if you want me to actually name the brand, but I have one that I just find that they very consistently put the research into the desire to use them medically. They test multiple times with independent labs, and so that's what I tell people. I said, I know for sure in my hands these ones have been safe and effective, and there's thousands of people using them. So I feel very comfortable with that.
And talk a little bit about you. You have some great information on your website, oilyvet.com. Talk a little bit about you've been passionate about this, that you kind of created an essential oil website basically for pets, which is exciting.
Yeah. There was I spoke at an essential oil convention, and then of course what happens is everybody's got questions for you, and you find at a convention that somebody will walk up to you, ask you one question, and then 3 people later it's the same question again.
Sure.
And so I've really figured out that, gosh, I need to duplicate myself, or I need to record some things, and if I could just record myself and everybody could listen to it. So it became more of a passion to teach classes to more people or put information out there that could reach 100 people at a time instead of one person at a time.
Of course, you bet.
So that's where my website is kind of directed towards now, is to be able to help everybody with this information more efficiently. Because, boy, I was having people drive from other states to our vet clinic, just to have the advice of the essential oils. They were very passionate about it, and they needed that information. And so that's my fun goal now, is to get it to everywhere.
Which is wonderful. And your website does a great job of reaching out, not only answering some of those questions that I think we all have about safety and efficacy, but just the scope of which essential oils can be used. I was just interested a couple years ago when, of course, the MRSA issue came out. I really believe that one of our only last resorts for really effectively treating MRSA is essential oils.
Oh, they are. And we have, clear cases that have responded to essential oils when nothing else will work. And, plants change. They've been around for millions of years. Every single little distillation of essential oils is slightly different from the last one, and we can't get that in pharmacology. They have to, by definition, be the same every time they make them. And so since the plants are slightly different, plus they're way smarter than any kind of laboratory,
Yep. Yep.
they modify. Every year, there's a little different water supply to the plant. The essential oil is slightly different. And that variation creates a situation where you cannot develop resistance to it.
So just exciting research. The more we learn, the more exciting really the essential oil research becomes. Have you seen any cases where you are hesitant, I guess, to use essential oils, or you just modify how you use them?
Yeah, now I actually, it's kind of one of those modalities where I go, boy, if somebody tried to take it away from me, I don't know if I'd want to practice veterinary medicine anymore.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like nutrition. I know you and I are huge in nutrition. If you could not modify a pet's diet, your job would become incredibly difficult.
Yes.
And for me, it's like, okay, I always start with diet anyways, but if I can't do diet and I can't get a little bit of essential oils into the case, it feels very empty.
Sure.
They're so powerful. They're so amazing. And it's just such a fun thing. And for me, it's a neat realization to look out in nature and realize how much we actually would be exposed to essential oils on a regular basis if we were living the way we kind of were supposed to.
Right.
We get outside, we take a deep breath, and we go, wow, it feels great to be outside. Well, even your common oak tree will emit constituents of essential oils.
Yes. And you hit on a great point. I think that part of the neat thing about essential oil therapy is that it moves much deeper. Of course, there are physiologic, medical reasons that we can prescribe them, but there's an emotional. I mean, there's a level, there's dramatic improvement with the emotional in terms of stress, anxiety response, mental changes, cognitive changes. It affects an animal down to the cellular level, which of course affects neurochemistry, biochemistry, which means you can have a happier patient, not just a physically healthier patient, but a more balanced and grounded patient by using essential oils. Are you branching out, or are you using them for like behavior modification?
Oh, definitely. And I have a case that taught me this the most is actually they can watch a YouTube video on the Oily Vet website, and it was Emmett was a bird that had horrendous papilloma. He actually was breathing so loudly he would wake up his owner from rooms away in the middle of the night. And again, we were at euthanasia with him, but since papillomas are like a wart, that was when my first little brain thing came in, little light bulb came on. I said, I got rid of my husband's warts. Why couldn't I get rid of this bird's warts?
Sure.
And so we started treating him, what I would say was, kind of scary things to do on a bird, especially birds. And his papillomas improved so much. It was just incredible. But I actually wanted a picture of him for a presentation I was doing, and we used a different blend on him to get another photo op. And what you see in his YouTube video, and there's a link to his whole story, he had actually witnessed his owner die, a previous owner die, and they laid at the bottom of his cage for several days before anybody found him.
Oh, geez.
I had never addressed his emotional concerns at all. I was all very tunnel vision, papilloma, treat the physical.
Yeah.
And we sprayed him with this other blend, and purely only for a photo op at first. His emotions changed. I mean, you can actually see it on the video because, of course, we were using our video because we wanted to capture photos, too. And it just was he hadn't been out of his cage in over 2 years. He came out of his cage for the first time. You could see him perk up with the other oils. And I went, whoa.
Oh, sure.
We have been missing this emotional connection.
Yes. Yep.
In everything we're doing. So when we do like a cancer case or, something, I mean, we know emotions are so important, and we've been neglecting those so often in the pets.
Yeah, we have. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We don't think about, addressing spiritual or energetically. Many veterinarians don't assume that those energetics should and need to be treated. So, and essential oils reach down to that level, which is part of the exciting part for me.
It's really amazing because it's so, that's what we want. We want holistic care, and they are so holistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can raise their energies. They, spiritually, emotionally, and physically affect them. And it's just, for me, I think that's why I was so passionate about them in the beginning, because it connected all the dots.
Yep, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you, it's so fun to watch your educational process, because you're beginning to change people's perspectives. Sadly, I have wondered, and I'm not by nature cynical, but I have wondered how much of the negative rap essential oils in the last 10 years have really acquired. Is it coming from pharmaceutical companies not interested in having just how beneficial and broad-reaching the effects of essential oils could be? Could some of these negative comments and information be coming from people who are not necessarily interested in having people know just how cheaply and successfully they could effectively treat mind, body, soul in their pets? And I will tell you that I just admire your work so much because you're out there helping people get over their fears in a logical, sound way to be able to more effectively provide totally natural and very effective form of healing for their animals. I just really appreciate what you're doing, Dr. Shelton. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Well, it's certainly a passion for me.
And that's wonderful. So Dr. Shelton's website, again, is oilyvet.com, and we'll encourage all of our viewers to visit your website, and of course, anticipate you coming back with more stories and information about using essential oils and pets in the future. Thank you, Dr. Shelton, for joining me.
Thank you.